My own sister didn't just shove my face into a birthday cake. She used it to hide a crime she'd been committing for years. The doctor found proof of injuries I couldn't even remember getting. But the most chilling part was my mother's voice, telling the police that I was the one who was confused. This story is about how one moment of violence unraveled a lifetime of lies. If you want to find out how it all fell apart, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss a single detail. You won't believe what they found on her phone. I knew birthdays could be messy, but I never expected mine to end with my sister's hand shoving a cake into my face, not playfully, but with a cold, calculated force that drove my head back into the solid oak of the dining room hutch. The laughter in the room died instantly, replaced by a collective gasp. I remember the sickly sweet smell of buttercream clogging my nostrils and the sharp, blinding pain at the back of my skull. Through the smear of frosting over my eyes, I saw her. My older sister, Rowan. Her smile wasn't one of mischief. It was a tight, triumphant smirk, her eyes glittering with something I wouldn't understand until much later. My mother, Marlene, rushed forward, not to me but to Rowan, her hands fluttering with frantic energy. "Oh, Rowan, you're always so wild," she chirped, a sound like glass breaking. She helped dab the frosting from Rowan's knuckles, while I was left to slide down the hutch, the world tilting on its axis. That was the pattern of our lives. Rowan was the sun. I was the shadow she cast. She was the star athlete, the debate team captain, the one whose trophies lined the mantelpiece. I was the quiet one, the reader, the one who learned to make herself small to avoid taking up any of Rowan's light. In our family, peace was a performance and I played my part well. Our sprawling Victorian house, with its high ceilings and echoing hallways, felt less like a home and more like a stage for Rowan's successes and my silent compliance. I remember when I was 16, I'd won a regional scholastic art award for a charcoal drawing of our father, who had passed 2 years earlier. It was the first time I had ever received that kind of public recognition, and for a fleeting moment I felt seen. The drawing was scheduled to be displayed in the county art gallery. The night before I was supposed to deliver it, I found it on the floor of my studio, a bottle of turpentine spilled across the canvas, blurring our father's face into a grotesque, unrecognizable smear. Rowan was standing in the doorway, a look of feigned horror on her face. "Oh my God, Avery! What happened? You must have knocked it over." My mother rushed in, drawn by my choked sob. She took one look at the ruined drawing, another at Rowan's perfectly staged shock, and then she looked at me. "Well, accidents happen," she said, her voice brisk, already in damage control mode. "It's a shame, but there's no use crying over it. We'll clean it up." When I tried to protest, to say that the turpentine was on the other side of the room, that it couldn't have just fallen, my mother's face hardened. "Don't start, Avery. Don't blame your sister for your own carelessness. It's ungrateful." Rowan put an arm around me, a gesture that felt more like a cage than a comfort. "It's okay," she whispered, her breath hot against my ear. "It was probably for the best. It wasn't that good anyway." Each incident was small enough to be deniable, and my mother was the master of denial. "Oh, you're being too sensitive, Avery," she would say, her voice laced with disappointment. "Rowan adores you. It was just a joke." My father, before he passed, had been a buffer, a gentle presence who saw me. He'd once told me I had a quiet strength, like a river that runs deep. After he was gone, the river froze over. The house became my mother and Rowan's kingdom, and they were its twin queens. I learned to navigate their moods, to anticipate the storms, and to never ever make waves. Complaining only made it worse. It painted me as the problem, the ungrateful, dramatic little sister who couldn't appreciate all the family had given her. So I learned to swallow my words, to patch my own wounds, and to pretend that the constant low-level anxiety gnawing at my stomach was normal. It's incredible how you can normalize poison. You drink a little every day and your body adapts. You start to believe the sickness is just how you're supposed to feel. The little cruelties, the gaslighting, the casual disregard. It all becomes the air you breathe. You forget what it's like to take a full, clean breath, because you can't remember a time when you weren't suffocating. The morning after my 21st birthday, I woke up with a headache that felt like a tectonic shift inside my skull. The world swam in and out of focus. My mother had left a glass of water and 2 ibuprofen on my nightstand with a note in her perfect looping cursive. "Feeling better, sweetie? Rowan is so sorry. She gets carried away." The note felt like another layer of frosting, smothering the truth of what happened. I tried to sit up, but a wave of nausea sent me reeling back against the pillows. I touched the back of my head gingerly and flinched. There was a tender, swollen lump there that pulsed with a dull, insistent rhythm. This wasn't just a bump. This was different. I stumbled to the bathroom, my reflection a pale, hollow-eyed stranger. The back of my hair was matted with something, dried blood and frosting. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through the fog of pain. This wasn't just a joke gone wrong. This was a wound. My mother dismissed my concerns with a practiced sigh. "Avery, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. You hit your head, it happens. Take another painkiller and rest." Rowan was nowhere to be seen. Probably out for a celebratory brunch with her friends, recounting the hilarious story of my humiliation. Staring at my own pathetic reflection, I felt the familiar urge to just accept it, to retreat back into my room and let the story be what they wanted it to be. But the throbbing in my skull was an insistent drumbeat of reality. I locked myself in the bathroom and pulled out my phone, my hands shaking as I scrolled to the only person who had ever seen through the family's perfect facade. My friend Chloe. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright. "Happy belated birthday, girl. How's the head?" I tried to form a casual reply, but a sob caught in my throat instead. "Whoa, Ave, what's wrong?" she asked, her tone shifting immediately to concern. I told her everything, the words tumbling out in a hushed, frantic whisper. About the cake, the force, the sickening crack of my head against the hutch, my mother's reaction. "And now she's acting like I'm crazy," I finished, my voice thin. "She's saying I'm just being dramatic, that I should just take an ibuprofen." For a moment there was silence on the other end of the line. I felt a surge of panic. Maybe my mother was right. Maybe I was blowing this out of proportion. Then Chloe's voice cut through, sharp and clear and utterly certain. "No, Avery, no. That is not okay. That is so far from okay. Is your head still hurting?" I admitted that I felt dizzy and sick. "Okay, that's it," she said, her voice leaving no room for argument. "You need to see a doctor. Right now. Not tomorrow, not after you rest. Now. If you want, I'll leave work and come get you." The offer, the simple, unwavering belief in her voice, was enough to break through the fog of gaslighting. "No, I can. I can drive," I said, a new resolve hardening in my voice. I needed to hear it from someone else. "That I'm not crazy." "You are the least crazy person I know," Chloe said firmly. "Go to the urgent care on the west side. They don't know your family. Just go. And you call me the second you're done." "I mean it." I hung up, a strange sense of clarity washing over me. Chloe was right. My pain wasn't an inconvenience. It was a symptom. Using my own car keys, I drove myself to the urgent care clinic on the other side of town. I just needed someone to tell me I wasn't crazy. I needed a doctor to look at the lump and say, "Yes, that's a real injury. You are not imagining this pain." The clinic was sterile and impersonal, a stark contrast to the suffocating warmth of my home. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and the air smelled of antiseptic. A kind, weary-looking physician named Dr. Hanley examined my head with gentle hands. His brow furrowed. "That's quite a knock you took," he said, his voice calm. "I want to get a scan just to be safe. How did you say this happened again?" I repeated the sanitized version I'd rehearsed in the car. "I slipped at my birthday party. Clumsy me. Hit my head on some furniture." He just nodded, his eyes lingering on my face for a moment too long, as if searching for something. He didn't push. He just ordered the scan. The wait felt like a lifetime, each tick of the clock in the exam room a judgment. Part of me still wondered if maybe I was overreacting. Maybe the pain blooming at the base of my skull was just bad luck, and my mother was right. Maybe I was just being dramatic. When Dr. Hanley returned, he wasn't calm anymore. He closed the door softly behind him and his face was grave. He held a tablet with a black and white image of my skull. He pointed to a thin, almost invisible white line. You have a hairline fracture at the base of your skull, Avery. That's a serious injury. My breath caught in my throat. It was real. The pain was real. But then he said something that made the floor drop out from under me. And it wasn't just from yesterday. He swiped the screen, showing another angle. See this here? It looks like an older, healed fracture. Same location. Can you recall any other falls? Another time you might have hit your head in the exact same spot. I stared at the image, my mind a complete blank. Nothing. Just a cold, empty void where a memory should have been. Dr. Hanley's professional gaze softened into something else. Concern. Real concern. He put the tablet down. Avery, he began, his voice low and steady. Does someone at home hurt you? That question. It was the one I had spent my entire life making sure no one would ever have a reason to ask. It was the thing I buried under layers of I'm fine and it's okay. And hearing it spoken aloud by a stranger in a cold white room felt like a physical blow. The lie I had lived for 21 years was suddenly too heavy to hold. The truth was a wild animal, and it was scratching its way out. Before I could answer, he'd already picked up the phone on the wall. I heard him murmur my name and the clinic's address to whoever was on the other end. Given the nature of the injuries, old and new, this falls under mandatory reporting, he explained gently after he hung up. I've contacted the police. A detective will be here shortly to speak with you. For the first time, someone wasn't telling me I was too sensitive, or that it was all in my head. He was telling me that what happened was real and it was wrong. The validation was so powerful it brought tears to my eyes. Hot, stinging tears of relief and terror. He didn't ask again if I wanted him to call. He just did it. And in that moment he took the choice and the burden of that choice out of my hands. He had seen the evidence written on my bones, and he believed it. He believed me. He led me to a small private consultation room down the hall to wait. Less than an hour later, a woman in a plain blue pantsuit arrived. She introduced herself as Detective Carver. She wasn't intimidating. She was calm, her presence steady and professional. She didn't treat me like a hysterical girl or a confused child. She spoke to me like an adult whose story mattered. We sat in the quiet room, and for the first time I told someone everything. Not just about the cake, but about the accidental shoves down the stairs, the turpentine on my drawing, the time my arm was slammed in a car door, the constant, insidious psychological warfare. Each memory I unearthed felt like pulling a shard of glass from my own skin. Detective Carver just listened, her pen scratching methodically across her notepad. She never interrupted. She never questioned. She just let me speak. In that quiet room, my hushed secrets finally found a voice. Just as I was describing the aftermath of the birthday party, the door to the consultation room swung open without a knock. My mother swept in like a hurricane. There you are. I called your phone a dozen times. Her eyes, blazing with fury, landed on Detective Carver, and her expression instantly shifted to one of syrupy concern. Oh, I am so sorry to interrupt. I'm Marlene Dalton, Avery's mother. She shot a withering glare at me. My daughter is distraught. She had a little fall yesterday and she's confused. She bruises easily. The old words, the familiar script designed to shrink me back into my box. She turned to me, her eyes boring into mine, filled with a silent, desperate command. This is ridiculous. Tell them you're confused. My entire body went cold. I could feel the old instinct rising up, the urge to apologize, to smooth things over, to take it all back and retreat into the safety of silence. My mother took a step closer, her hand reaching for my arm. But then I looked past her and saw Detective Carver's patient, waiting face. I saw Dr. Hanley's X-ray in my mind's eye. The fracture. The old fracture. The proof. The strength that my father said ran deep inside me found its current. I pulled my arm back before my mother could touch me. Mom, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor running through my entire body. I'm not confused. I turned fully toward Detective Carver, breaking my mother's gaze and with it, a lifetime of submission. I want to continue. My mother's jaw dropped. The sound that escaped her was a strangled gasp of disbelief. For the first time in my life, I had defied her. I had chosen my truth over her narrative. The power in the room had shifted, and it was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Just as my mother was stammering, trying to regain control, another figure appeared in the doorway. It was my Aunt Elise, my mother's younger sister. Her face was pale, her hands twisting the strap of her purse. "Marlene, I got your frantic message," she said, her eyes darting from my mother to me, then landing on Detective Carver. She looked like she was about to be sick. "Detective," Elise said, her voice barely a whisper. "Can I have information." My mother whirled on her. "Elise, what are you doing? This is a private family matter. You need to leave." But Elise stood her ground, her gaze fixed on the detective. "No, Marlene. I can't. Not anymore." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a deep, bottomless well of guilt. I should have said something years ago. My whole world felt like it was fracturing, just like the bones in my skull. Here was my aunt, the woman who always brought me books and remembered my favorite kind of tea, admitting she had been a silent witness. A part of me screamed with rage. "Where were you? Where were you all those times I was hurting?" But another, quieter part understood the terror in her eyes. It was the same terror that had kept me silent for so long. Fear of Marlene. Fear of Rowan. Fear of destroying the pristine image of our perfect family. Aunt Elise proceeded to tell Detective Carver a story that made the hairs on my arms stand up. She recounted a visit from 8 years ago when I was 13. She'd arrived at the house unexpectedly and heard a commotion upstairs. She found Rowan in my bedroom, twisting my arm behind my back while I cried, my head having just slammed against my wooden headboard. Rowan had claimed I'd tried to steal her diary. My mother had rushed in, pulled Rowan off me, and immediately started comforting her, telling Rowan it was okay, that I shouldn't have been in her things. Elise watched as my mother told me to stop crying and go to my room, never once asking if I was hurt. She hit her head hard. Elise whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I saw it. I wanted to say something, but Marlene, she gave me this look. And I left. I never forgot it." That was it. The old fracture. The memory wasn't gone. It had been buried, locked away in a part of my mind that was too scared to remember. Elise's confession was the key. This was the moment the ground gave way completely. My mother's carefully constructed reality shattered. She stared at her sister, her face ghostly white. "You're lying," she breathed, but the words had no conviction. It was the desperate plea of someone watching their world burn to the ground. Detective Carver's expression was unreadable, but her pen moved faster now. She had a timeline. She had a witness. She had corroboration for a pattern of abuse. My isolated incidents were no longer isolated. They were connected dots, drawing a perfect, horrifying picture of my life. The power had not just shifted, it had been completely upended. The narrative was no longer my mother's to control. It now belonged to a police report. Detective Carver turned to my mother. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to wait outside." Marlene, looking utterly defeated, didn't argue. She just drifted out of the room like a ghost. Carver then laid out the next steps. They had enough to proceed. "With your aunt's testimony and the medical evidence," she explained, "we can build a strong case. But I found something else." She paused, her eyes meeting mine. "We pulled the security footage from the restaurant where you had your party. It's grainy, but it clearly shows your sister whispering something to a friend and pointing at the hutch behind you moments before the incident. It shows intent." My stomach twisted. It wasn't an impulse. She had planned it. "There's more," Carver continued, her voice softening slightly. "We got a warrant for her phone records. Found notes. Entries detailing her jealousy. Plans to put me in my place to... My 21st birthday was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, Rowan had planned it as a punishment. "We're going to make the arrest this evening," the detective stated. "At your home. During dinner. I find it's best to do these things in a setting where they feel most in control. It minimizes the chances for denial." The thought of it was sickening, but I understood. There could be no whispering this away, no reframing it as a misunderstanding. It had to be public. It had to be undeniable. Later that day I went home. The house was unnervingly quiet. Rowan found me in the library. Her usual arrogance was gone, replaced by a flicker of what looked like fear. "Avery," she said, her voice strained, "Mom told me you went to the doctor." Listen, I'm so sorry about last night. She took a step closer. You know how I get. I see red. It's like I black out. It's not me. The performance was starting. She was trying to paint herself as a victim of her own temper. I just stared at her. Then you tried to make me feel crazy. You tried to blame me, she went on, her eyes welling with tears. You were winding me up all week, you know you were. About your birthday, about your new job. You act so perfect all the time. It makes me crazy, but I'll go to therapy. I'll do anything. Please just tell them it was a mistake. Don't do this to us. To the family. Dad would have wanted us to forgive each other. The mention of our father was a deliberate, poisoned dart. It was a masterful performance. The remorse seemed real, the plea heartfelt. But all I could see was the smirk on her face as she smashed cake into my eyes. All I could feel was the cold hardwood against my skull. She wasn't sorry for hurting me. She was sorry she got caught. It's too late for that, Rowan, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. This was my second moment of doubt. Seeing her stand there looking so broken, a sliver of the old guilt crept in. Was I doing the right thing? Destroying my sister, my mother, the entire architecture of our family? For a split second I saw the future. Court dates, whispers in our small town. The shame that would stain our name forever. Was this strength or was it just revenge? Had I saved myself by damning everyone else? The thought was a cold stone in my stomach. But then I remembered the X-ray. The bone-deep truth that I couldn't unsee. Justice wasn't revenge. It was simply an accounting of the facts. That evening, dinner was a silent, suffocating affair. My mother pushed food around her plate, her face a blank mask. Rowan kept shooting me desperate, pleading glances. I just stared at my water glass, counting the seconds. At exactly 7:15 p.m., the doorbell rang. My mother's head snapped up, her eyes wide with panic. I knew she had hoped, prayed, that this was all a bad dream I would wake up from. But it wasn't. I stood up and opened the door. Detective Carver was there, along with a uniformed officer. She stepped inside, her presence filling the cavernous dining room with an authority it had never known. "Rowan Dalton," she said, her voice clear and carrying in the silence. "You're under arrest for felony assault." Rowan shot up from her chair, her face contorting into a mask of pure rage. "You're kidding me. She's lying. Tell them, Mom. Tell them she's a pathetic liar." But my mother was frozen, her face ashen, finally seeing the monster she had protected for so long. As the officer moved to cuff her, Rowan lunged toward me, her eyes burning with a hatred so pure it was terrifying. The officer caught her arm, but her words struck me like a physical blow. "You ruined everything," she screamed, her voice cracking. "You think our grandmother loved you more because you were quiet and sad? She only pitied you. You ruined everything the day you were born." And there it was. The truth. Not hidden under frosting or excuses or faux apologies. It was a lifetime of pathological jealousy, finally laid bare under the harsh light of reality. My mother let out a strangled sob, a sound of absolute devastation. Her denial had been shattered. The silence that followed was louder than all the screaming. Rowan accepted a plea arrangement to avoid a public trial. Assault with a lesser sentence, mandatory anger management, and a 5-year restraining order. The day she moved out was quiet and gray, the house feeling larger and emptier than ever before. My mother didn't say a word. For weeks we moved around each other like ghosts, the silence thick with unspoken grief and recrimination. Then one day she asked me to go to a therapy session with her. I sat on a stiff gray couch across from my mother and a therapist with a kind face and tired eyes. For 20 minutes my mother talked about the family's image, the shame, the disruption. The therapist finally interjected gently. "Marlene, I hear how difficult this has been for your family, but I haven't heard you acknowledge the source of that disruption. Can you speak to Avery about what happened?" My mother turned to me, her hands twisting in her lap. I wanted to protect everyone," she whispered. "I wanted to hold the family together." The old script. The cold fury I thought I'd dealt with rose in my throat. "You wanted to protect an image," I said, my voice shaking but clear. "You weren't protecting me. You were protecting Rowan from consequences. There's a difference." My mother flinched as if I'd slapped her. Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't know how bad it was," she pleaded. I didn't want to see. It wasn't an apology, not yet, but it was a start. A crack of light in the darkness. Aunt Elise became my rock, her quiet support a constant presence. The Victorian house, once a prison of secrets, slowly became my quiet refuge. I started painting again, filling the silent rooms with color and life. I reconnected with Chloe and other friends who Rowan had pushed away, and they welcomed me back without question. Some days are still hard. Sometimes a loud noise makes me flinch, or I'll catch my reflection and see the ghost of that scared, silent girl. Healing isn't a straight line, but for the first time I feel like I'm breathing clean air. I feel something I'd never felt before in the walls of my own home, safe, seen, free. Real loyalty, I've learned, doesn't demand silence in the face of harm. It protects. It's a strange thing to mourn a family that is still living. I mourn the sister I should have had, the mother I deserved. But I am building a new life from the wreckage, one based not on a fragile, perfect image, but on the solid, unshakable foundation of truth. My truth. And it is more than enough. Now I have a question for you all. I chose to involve the police and press charges, which ultimately dismantled my family as I knew it. But I could have accepted my sister's apology, tried to handle it internally with therapy, and preserved the family unit, even if it was a broken one. Was I right to seek external justice, even at the cost of my family's destruction? Or is there a moral obligation to try and fix things from within first, no matter the personal cost? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found yourself captivated by this story and want more tales of betrayal and justice, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world, and it ensures you won't miss the next story we have to share.